Welcome. As we kick off tonight, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to the land, waters and culture. We pay respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. Before I kick off, I'd also like you guys to know that we're going to be using Slido tonight, which is for asking the audience and the audience at home some questions. So please go to that website when you get a chance, enter that code, and Susie will inform you on how to use that in a little while. My name is Max Van Been. I'm the committee chair of Be Local Sydney. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Be Local thing, Be Local exists to build and support B Corp community within a certain area. So we're obviously Be Local Sydney. There does also exist a Be Local Melbourne and also Good North to support the B Corp community in Australia. We formed last September, and as I said, our task is to bring together a sense of community amongst B Corps in Sydney, to share ideas, to knowledge share, and really try and realise the benefits of what B Corp can provide. So we have, as a committee, for those people who are in the committee, there's 9 of us, a couple of around the room at the moment. Hands up, guys, if you want to have a chat to them. There we go. We meet on a regular basis, do our best to try and pull together the B Corp community. We've obviously had a few challenges in that over the last couple of months. But what we have done is tried to consolidate and crystallise what our focus is on trying to build community. And we build that around 4 key pillars. The first one's events. So we're hosting tonight. Thank you, Fishburners, for hosting us tonight and for organising online streaming. And there will be more events coming later in the year, obviously, either virtually or in person. We're also here to drive the B economy. So you guys will notice that there's been some things coming around purchasing B Corp to B Corp. So keep your eyes out for that. We exist to broaden the community. Hopefully our aim is to bring on some new larger B Corps into the community. And finally, we were also focusing on building an online community. In times like this, online communities are super important. And we have launched, thanks to Alison, who's also in our committee, a new online community for B Corps. We really encourage everyone to go on bcorpcommunity.com. Please check it out. It is a way for us to interact when we can't interact in person. So please do check that out. That's it for me, just from a point of introduction. I'm going to introduce Paul Martin, who's Head of Economic Development at Sunshine Coast Council, who is our partner for this evening. Thank you. I'm just going to...
Okay, good evening, everyone. I wish I was there with you. Hello from the Sunshine Coast. This is Maroochydore Beach behind me, and in the background, you can see a submarine cable laying ship, which I'll explain about a little later. But thanks for allowing us to be here. We might move to the next slide, please, ma'am. You're probably wondering what a head of economic development is or does, and why a council of all things is interfering with your Thursday night networking activities. As a council, you're probably used to dealing with yours, or maybe you don't want to deal with yours, as they traditionally have focused on roads, rates and rubbish. Our council's a little bit different. In fact, we're a little bit different in Queensland. I'm sure you would agree about that in Sydney, but our council in particular is a bit different to most of the others. We're the 4th largest council in Australia. We've got a population of about 350,000 on the Sunshine Coast, but what a lot of people don't realise is 1 in 7 Australians live in southeast Queensland. And the picture you can see on this map here is actually of our new airport, which only opened last month. Already additional flights. We fly to Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland and Adelaide, and new flights to Cairns. And if it wasn't for COVID, we were hoping for some additional flights to Asia coming up. And that's a project, a $300 million project that our council led. And our council's won a number of innovation awards. Our economy's grown from 13 billion to 20 billion over the last 8 years. And we're very focused on bringing the best possible future we can for our community. We're also have been recognised by the Intelligent Community Forum. We've been a smart community of theirs for the last 7 years, and one of their top 7 intelligent communities for the last 2 years as well. Next slide, please, man. So why are we at this event? Well, one of yours, Max, one of yours, Huddle Insurance from Sydney, was looking to expand in Australia. And when they were looking where they should go, they knocked on our door, literally. And they started investigating and evaluating what the Sunshine Coast had to offer in terms of quality staff, in terms of lifestyle, opportunity, balance, all those wonderful things that I think in a COVID world we appreciate all the more. But I think most importantly, what they really liked about the Sunshine Coast was the values and the purpose of our council, our region. Our ethos is healthy, smart and creative, and really to make sure that we have that triple bottom line, that quadruple bottom line approach to everything we do. So we're really proud to be with you all tonight, both those that are there at Fishburners, thank you for hosting, and those that are online. And we thank Huddle Insurance who created this opportunity for us. Next slide, please, man. So, as I said, our vision is about being healthy, smart and creative, being Australia's most sustainable region. So in addition to doing that airport expansion, what a lot of people don't know is that we were the first government, first council, but first government of any level to offset 100% of its energy needs with our own solar farm. So we opened that several years ago now. And as you can see from the slide, it's actually offsetting 109% of our energy needs now, more than 100%. And that really is about our ethos, going with integrity, protecting the environment, providing solutions for our residents, offsetting their costs, and just doing the right thing. Next slide, please, man. But it's not all just about infrastructure. Yes, we've got airports, we've got solar farms, we've got submarine cables. We also do innovative programs. And this one's one that's close to my heart, something we came up with last year. And to my knowledge, the first of its kind in Australia. We launched what we call our Be Well and Prosper program. And it's essentially a free employee assistance program for small businesses. So for any business that employs 0 to 19 employees, you've got access to this portal completely free. And we did this way before COVID. And we did it last year because we knew that running businesses is stressful. And sometimes you can't talk to your founders about it. Sometimes you can't talk to your partners about it. So we provided this free service. And you can see on the slide, a number of corporates got behind it to make sure it was free for our 30,000 plus businesses on the Sunshine Coast. We also do a lot of programs in the community. Our migrant work ready programs work under our reconciliation action plan. We do our Horizon program, our Caloundra music festivals. We do a lot of activities in the region to be well grounded in our and connected to our community. Next slide, please, man. So COVID, as I say to everyone, COVID's been a terrible, terrible thing. We've learned a lot from it. As I think a lot of people have, and we've modified some of our practices. So I remember my first COVID meeting very vividly, March 11th, where we basically formed a strike team to address how we were going to protect our community and then support our businesses. And so those first few months with COVID were really terrible. We were really quick to put out stimulus packages. It's not just the federal government that does that, but state and local government, in our case, putting out stimulus packages to support businesses, support not-for-profits, support the community. And we've actually had 3 stimulus packages, including one announced on June 24th for an incentive assistance program, and what we're calling our economic resurgence plan to really help the economy not only recover. We don't want to get to where we were, we want to go past where we were and really continue our fantastic growth trajectory. So we've learned a lot from COVID. What we have seen is that more people than ever are interested in the Sunshine Coast, what we've got to offer. And when they're looking to expand in Australia, Queensland is obviously a state they consider, and the Sunshine Coast is one of those destinations. And a key reason for that is the fact we now have the fastest data connection from the Sunshine Coast to Asia, and the second fastest to the US. Yes, little old Sunshine Coast. Sunshine Coast Council, brought a submarine cable to shore from Guam. It connects into Sydney, it goes to Guam. From Guam, it effectively connects to the world. And it goes on to Tokyo, LA, Singapore, and so forth. And that is really important because there's only 2 other places in Australia other than us that can do that, Sydney and Perth. So in terms of the East Coast, our submarine cable is really relevant. But probably the thing I love most about the Sunshine Coast, and really ties in beautifully with B Corp, our innovation ecosystem, but our business people, they are such giving, caring people. We have a give first philosophy here. I used to work as a diplomat overseas. I've worked in Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, Singapore, Malaysia, Mexico, lots and lots of different places. I've never worked in a location where the community is so community-minded, give first, supportive, and it really shows, I think, in our results. And like B Corp, we're purpose-driven. Next slide, please, man. So one of those companies, and I believe she's actually online tonight as our guest, Fida Adra, CEO of a company called B, formerly called Comlink. Fida is an amazing CEO. She took the company from $70,000 turnover to $26 million turnovers over the last decade plus. And what they do is they started off by providing transportation services for the aged care industry, but there's so much more than that now. They're about livability, they're about longevity, they are about care. And Fida just launched a few months ago a Vitality Village here in our health precinct, our $5 billion health precinct. And that whole Vitality Village is bringing together innovators, partners, collaborators, again, with purpose to deliver better results, not only for those on the Sunshine Coast, but nationally and internationally. So I wanted to specifically mention Fida and Vitality Village, because if any of you in the audience tonight are playing in that space of aged care, health, well-being, assistance, support, new products, services, creativity, I think you should be talking to Fida, because what she's achieved and what we've got here on the Sunshine Coast is really quite special. And one of my pitches is often that the Sunshine Coast is the Goldilocks Council in Australia. We're not too big and we're not too small. We're just right for you to come and test and trial your solutions and discover great potential and great opportunities. And worst case scenario, you've got 1.1 million customers within a 45-minute drive of the Sunshine Coast. Next slide, please, man. So if you'd like to know more, my colleague Wendy McDonald is also online. Wendy's mobile number's there. Obviously, we'll make my details available. And all I'd really like to say is thank you to Max, thank you to B Corp, thank you to Fishburners, and thank you to all of you in the audience. We're really excited to have joined the B Corp family through Huddle. We think there's great opportunity for us to collaborate, and we can't wait to assist some of you expand your operations to Queensland and the Sunshine Coast. Thank you.
I've started businesses in other states of Australia, but you know what? I couldn't get back to the Sunshine Coast quick enough to work with the loyal and skilled people we have on this coast here.
The Be Well and Prosper program has been designed especially for small businesses. We're helping them become more resilient and engaged.
The Sunshine Coast Council has really provided us with an environment to prosper and do what we're passionate about, which is assisting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people into employment.
In an Australian first with a commitment to the environment, Sunshine Coast Council built this solar farm, which now offsets 109% of its electricity consumption. Welcome to the Sunshine Coast.
No, we're on now. Okay, good. Hello, everyone. That was amazing. I've never heard a council sound so interesting. Everyone's off to the Sunshine Coast. Thank you so much for joining us, and for obviously we've got some amazing people here with us today. We should have Liam Ridgway on video call. Is that right? Yeah. A fifth member of the.
Can you hear me?
Oh, fantastic! Yes. We can't see you, but we can hear you. You're like God. I quite like it. So, there you are. Lovely to see you. Welcome. So actually what I thought I might start with doing is, so obviously the title of today is all about building back better. We kind of, in order to think about how we're going to build back better, we do need to really think about how we are right now and how things have been affected in the last few months. I'm just to give you context as to who everybody is, but also to give you context as to how they've been affected. We'll start off with that. And Gavin, if it's okay, I'm putting you a bit on the spot, but we might start with you. So it would be wonderful if you could, sorry, not Gavin, you're next to me. Liam, if you could just start by giving us a bit of a sense as to your background, and also just how you've been affected over the last few months. That would be fantastic.
Yep. So my name's Liam Ridgway. So firstly, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Gadigal people. So I'm myself am a Gumbaynggirr and Waka Waka person. So I'm actually working from Gumbaynggirr country at the moment. So normally I reside on Gadigal country in Sydney. So I'm the co-founder of NGNY, or Nakanyagu is the full name of our business. So we're a digital agency and a technology solutions business. So in terms of COVID, we've actually had the opposite effect, I guess, being in the technology sector. Things have actually ramped up quite significantly, and we've been the busiest that we've been in our entire 6.5 years of existing. We've just had long days and lots of clients knocking on our door, and so we've really had a positive impact across our organisation. The team's actually started growing as well, which has been great. But then I guess the flip side of that is that with the growth of the team, there's some people who we've not physically caught up with at all, and so that's been quite an interesting, I guess, impact of the COVID happening, and so we've had to learn to adapt to that, but we have adapted well. One thing, I guess, out of coincidence is that we actually did establish our business as a remote working business about a year ago. So when COVID came around, it was business as usual, but it just meant as well that we weren't able to connect in person with our team and any new members of our team.
That's that's really interesting. It's funny, when we first started talking about this, we were like, is there anybody who won't have been affected too much? And it sounds like actually you're one of the few that probably hasn't been. And actually we will give everybody a chance. So the Slido is partly there so that everyone can participate, because we do want to hear from everyone. So we'll go around the panel, but then it would be worth having a think about how your own businesses have been affected, because we will come on to talk about that a little bit. But Gavin, if I could turn to you, and you could tell us a little bit about Beyond Bank, but also about how you guys have been affected, that'd be awesome.
No, thanks, Susie. I was actually hoping to be at the other end. So, Gavin Cook, I've been with Beyond Bank now for a couple of years, but I've actually been in the mutual banking sector for 23 years. I started out in the corporate world, but wasn't enjoying that so much, so then moved into mutual banking and been down in the Southern Highlands and out in the Central West and now in Sydney. So enjoying that. For us, I suppose, when the crisis kicked off, we were designated an essential service. So for us, it was about how fast are we going to make the decision to stay open? Are we committed? So pretty much our executive came together and said, yes, no, we're committed to the communities, committed to being a designated essential service. So we've quite proudly been able to keep all of our branches open for the time, and all of our staff. So we were quite clear about that we made a commitment to our staff that everybody was to positions and the branches to remain open. We have 42 branches and over 680 staff, so, and probably 50% of those are face-to-face. So that was the challenge for us, was around how do we quite quickly put into place the practices that were required, the social distancing, ensuring that our customers were aware. In the regional areas, not everybody was as aware as others. So making sure that all those practices were in place, and then keeping our staff safe so that we were always there to help them. So that was our very early focus. We then looked at how we can do that service in different ways. We were able to send 40% of our workforce home, and that included our call centre. We sent some of our call centre at home as well, so we could maintain that. Then we allocated staff across different branches, and we're also quite fortunate that we're pretty much from Sydney to Perth, and then up in the Hunter down to Melbourne. So we're able to allocate those resources out, broke up the teams to ensure that there was always teams there to support the front line, and the front line's been a lot of the focus for us.
So really, wow, that's a bit close. That was a really good way of phrasing it. I was just thinking as you were talking that you guys are very much the front line, and it's not necessarily what people think of as the front line is your local bank, but actually the way that you've supported the community is very much about that. So actually it'd be amazing if you can tell us partly about Mentally Friendly, because I'm not sure like how many people are familiar with Mentally Friendly. And I don't want to forget online. So yeah, I suppose it'd be great if you can give us a bit of context. So you just need to turn it on. That was my suggestion. Okay.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So my name is Sakshi. I'm a lead organizational designer at Mentally Friendly. We're a design and innovation studio based out of Redfern, but we also have a studio based in Canberra, so that's our policy design. Really what we do is we work with companies to try to make good intentions real. So that's through digital and human services. And really what we do is embed teams alongside product teams within organizations. And then we really work to create those products and make sure we create immediate progress with lasting value. So we work with public and private companies. And I think when it comes to the impact of COVID, just like most companies, when it first happened, we obviously, we weren't sure. We're very reliant on other businesses and how they decide to spend the time. So I think in those first original days, we talked a lot about, the impact that it could have. And we actually got on the forefront of those conversations. And one of the things that we did talk about, which is a very real conversation, was, having wage cuts, and is that something that we may have to do? And amazingly enough, everyone in the company actually volunteered and said we'd be very okay with wage cuts, because at the cost of, losing our own teammates, we'd rather save each other, because we don't know this time. And it was actually such an amazing moment that we all went through. And I think that's when it felt very real, that COVID was something uncontrollable and we don't know what's going to happen. And on the other side of that, our company, our co-founders were really amazing. They got together and they said, if our team is willing to put their wages on the line, then we should be able to put our profits on the line. So we actually created a profit share program with all of the people in our team. So yes, there's bad, but there's also good. So I think it actually was quite a pivotal moment for our agency.
That's amazing. Yeah. Kevin, you have got a microphone.
Shout. Hi everyone, thank you for the invite. I think John and the Mentally Friendly team invited us, so thank you. So Kevin Cheng, I'm a doctor and have a background in business. I run a social enterprise called Osana. We're like a medical service focusing on prevention. And we've been in the thick of it, so really busy during this time, which has had positives and negatives. The positives in the health system per se has been a lot of reform towards virtual care. I think the Chief Medical Officer said 10 years of healthcare reform in 10 days, so it's been frantic. It's also been busy and helped us build strong relationships with not only our patients, our members, but also across our team as well. The challenges have been, because we focus on prevention, there's been almost a retreat to safe ground. So only go to the hospital when we need to, only go see a doctor when we really need to. And we don't know where that pendulum is swinging and settling. And we hope to encourage people back towards wellness activities. There's been some positives and minuses from the lockdown as well. But look forward to talking more with the panel and with you tonight.
And Lee will tell us a little bit about Future Super, which I imagine most people will be familiar with.
So my name is Lee Dunlop. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Future Super. We are an ethical and fossil fuel-free super fund. Our mission is to create a future free of climate change and inequality. So as a funds management business, at the start of this, you know, we were sort of reeling a little bit. There was a lot of economic uncertainty. Our members were very worried, understandably. There was the early access scheme coming out, so our team was helping to facilitate that, having not done it before. No one had done it before. And then the sort of the threat of recession, the R word looming. So there was a lot of things that the business was sort of trying to cope with at once, while we were also sort of getting used to working remotely as a business. But we were able to ride that out, those initial sort of shockwaves. And I think our purpose and falling back to that and having that there to provide clarity for us in terms of what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be focusing on at this time was really helpful. And we've actually just seen our 2 biggest quarters of growth over the first 6 months of the year. So we somehow managed to do something right, but I'm not surprised. But that was, I guess, really rewarding to see, having to sort of cope with all of that and then come out at the back end with some really good results for our members. So we're
I'm
pretty
just going to do it. I think we should give that a round of applause. I'm sorry. I think that, you know, that's just amazing. And I think there's been a lot of conversation, and we'll come on to it a little bit later on tonight, but there's been a lot of conversation about, does purpose go out the window at the point at which the funds are seriously threatened and people start worrying about, have they got a shelter? Do you still care about purpose at that point? And it's wonderful to see that people really have done. Did I cut you off in the middle there? Are you still going? Okay. Well, we'll come on a bit more to purpose shortly, and other kind of areas that you know are so key because we are a B Corp community, and caring about all of the different areas where we have impact. But what it would be great to do is, I mentioned before that it would be really good to understand where everyone's at and where everyone feels that they've sort of been through with this. So if we can get the Slido up, I'm not sure how, but somebody else is in charge of that, thankfully. So the Slido website, and will, so if you join at slido.com and then you use the hashtag 45537, you can then input your view and we'll get a live. Has people already done that? Oh, online. Oh, everyone's already done. Oh, good. Okay. Wow. I thought that was going to be like a live. Sorry? Okay. Well, do it if you haven't already, because there's definitely more than 10 people in the room. So we'll see them change live in front of us. Very exciting. This is one of the things that happens when we've got a hybrid room of people online as well as people in the room, and it's very exciting. It's the first time I've done this. Are people still inputting? It looks like we're done. Okay, good. Okay, well, okay, so everyone watch, see what these two have done. Yeah, I do. So the most significant changes are the changed work practices to continue after COVID, which is fantastically leads us on to the sort of conversation that we will have later on around building back better. And really amazing to hear that just 28% of the people who've responded have had significant financial and operational loss. So that's really good news, and certainly doesn't make it feel as much about rebuilding after a crisis. You didn't have any impact on that. Love it. So what we'll come on to is just a bit of a sense. Everyone sort of touched on it a little bit, but particularly thinking about employees, everyone has been sort of shuttled into a completely different work world. Some with screaming kids, some with silence all day long, and it's certainly been a feeling that is very different for everyone. And obviously mental health is something that suffers, and well-being is something that can suffer as a result of that, or potentially be much better. And I think we've all found that there's been sort of some parts that we'd love to keep in the future and other parts that we wouldn't. But Liam, if you don't mind, I will put you on the spot again first, and we'll talk, if you can give us a bit of a sense about mental health and well-being within your team and how that's changed, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, quite interestingly, a lot of people in my team, so we generally get on well, but a lot of people in my team are actually quite introverted, and so they've actually they've been faring quite well through this entire process. We've tended to find that the workplace culture has kind of led to, I guess, people communicating and contacting each other through the different tools that we use, but contacting each other when they, I guess, really have that desire to connect and that purpose to connect as well. Like I noticed, like I kind of compare it to when we did have an office, and whilst we did enjoy each other's company, I tended to kind of measure how my day would go, and based on sometimes the random conversations that would kind of take place, and then how it kind of steers your mind and thinking, which absolutely is absolutely necessary. But I tend to find that now that obviously a lot less of that happens, because people will normally call you and they'll say, "Hey, how are you going?" But then they will then actually look to then have I guess a productive work-based conversation with you. So yeah, I tend to find that we do have moments where we do feel a little bit cooped up within the team, and we do have that desire to want to catch up. But then there's always, personally myself, my wife works World Health Organization, so she's working frontline overseas on COVID, and she's very strict about the rules, and she actually says you should be talking to your team about these rules and following them as well. It's the main reason why I'm not sitting physically on that panel with you tonight there as well, but it is because yeah, I guess we really are quite we're really quite, I guess, kind of strict as well with the rules, plus the fact that our organization is digital, and it's meant that we've been able to adapt really quickly to this, but also that the team, as I was saying before, is quite introverted by nature. So they've just been able to kind of progress and work in, I guess, this manner. But also having access to the tools has really helped us in doing that. And in fact, it's had a positive effect with a lot of our clients as well. Now it's now more normalized. I didn't tell people that we typically didn't tell people that we were a remote working business before COVID, and once COVID came around, because it was normalized, I could freely talk about the fact that, hey, for the last year we've actually been a remote working business.
Yeah, I'm back in. So I imagine that actually has been a significant benefit, to be able to say, actually, we've got this, we know what we're doing, we've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a huge benefit to us, because I guess is that people now kind of, I guess, they understand, because they're in the same situation themselves. Everyone's in the same boat. So everyone can understand what it is to work from home. I mean, even I actually organise with some of my clients, and this is where I actually manage some of my own personal mental health and well-being, is I actually say to some clients, hey, if we organise a call between 3 and 5 p.m, I'm actually out getting some daylight and going for a walk. So do you mind if we do our call while I'm actually on my afternoon walk? And people are like, oh, absolutely, love that idea. Why don't I do that? I should do that as well. And so it's actually inspired a few people to go on their afternoon walks and do, or their daytime walks and do their phone calls at the same time.
Okay, everyone, mental note. I'm definitely taking one away. Love it.
We engaged our EAP and just spending time with people as almost like a family, given that we're a small team of 30 people, to make sure that we're caring for each other and helping. So there's been a lot of reaching outside of work hours and sharing, looking after kids and so forth in the right way. It's been good.
That's great. Is there any, now that we've kind of got into it, I'm thinking number one tips are kind of quite handy that people do walk away with and like, well, actually that's something tangible I could do with my team. Is there anything you think that's one that, you know, we found has been really super helpful? Put you on the spot.
Yeah. Let me have a think.
Come back to it, yeah.
Can share. I mean, I think for us, we're a very social crew. I think all of our team, we love being together. We actually spent pre-COVID, everyone loved hanging out with each other all the time, very face-to-face. I think one of the key differences has been to maintain a sense of connection through like a consistent ritual. So, you know, something as simple as a stand-up, which we do with 38 people. We'll jump on a call at a certain time. It's just a way to feel like you're part of something, even though you're going from your bed to maybe somewhere else in your house. And I think it is such a moment for us to realize that we're still a team together. And then on top of that, we have a new thing that we put together pre-COVID, but I think has become really valuable now, which are well-being days. So we have 6 additional days on top of annual leave where you're asked by the whole studio to take that day to go do something different, go enjoy a different hobby, go explore something. And I think during COVID, people have really realized that you push yourself a little bit further than you probably would in an office environment because you're working so hard and you want to reach those outcomes, the same outcomes you would in a real life environment. So you don't realize how tired you are by the end of it. So I think it's actually made a huge difference to our team, which has been really valuable as well.
Certainly staff wellbeing's been critical for us in terms of the communication and also the communication back. So we were quite quick to put in place surveys, bi-weekly meetings, access to our executive team. They were quite clear with their communication from the start. Part of the development with our leaders was around how to lead in a crisis. So we felt that there was a need to give them more information in a different environment. So it wasn't just about staff wellbeing, but also then upskilling our leaders. One of the best examples we had was you know, we introduced webinars around being an accidental counsellor to our leaders. But then when we looked at that, we thought, no, that needs to go all the way down to our staff, because if you think about the phone calls that we're receiving, you know, we're loans, we're credits, the impact that COVID had on our customers, the level of uncertainty. So we found that our staff were being the accidental counsellor. So give them those tools so that they could help themselves as well. So we thought that upskilling, you know, everybody in the organisation was quite important. So I put that in place quite quickly as well.
Like everyone else, employee wellbeing was sort of one of the first things we turned to and wanted to ensure we could maintain throughout the initial stages of working from home. Because it wasn't just people adjusting to working from home, it was working from home during a global pandemic, it was working from home while you're trying to homeschool. I have 2 cats in a studio apartment and that was difficult enough, so my hat's off to parents who are trying to homeschool in amongst it all. I don't know how you did it. Some of the measures we were fortunate enough to be able to put in place, we put in place an extra day of mental health leave each month that we had staff ask them to take. We were able to reduce our working hours by 5 hours a week while still maintaining full-time rates of pay, so people could have an extra break. We recognise that when people are working remotely, they're not commuting, they don't have that time to sort of disconnect from work, and so often people will work during the time they would otherwise be commuting or listening to music. So we wanted to make it clear to our staff that they shouldn't be trying to work additional hours, or that there was that sort of, they need to be online all the time. We lifted the cap on our EAP provider, so people could access unlimited support for them and their immediate families, and also put in place unlimited COVID leave. So if you had any symptoms were diagnosed or were caring for someone with the same, you didn't have to dip into your personal leave balance. So there was sort of some really tangible things we were able to put in place pretty quickly, and everyone was really appreciative. But I also recognise we're fortunate as a company in being able to do that and being in the position to do that.
Yeah, it's a really tricky balance, and I think as B Corps and the B Corp community, like one of the biggest places we have an impact is on our employees and staff, and it's super hard to balance the financial outcomes with the kind of mental health and well-being outcomes. And that kind of leads me on a little bit to one of the biggest questions about being a B Corp and how you kind of navigate the route that you take through something like this, which is essentially purpose. Like ultimately, we know that purpose can drive, can make a difference from a financial perspective, but and that it's also so important to have that kind of North Star that's driving everyone forward and together. But how has that that North Star, how has that helped everyone navigate through this? And also how will that kind of help you navigate through and beyond the other side and to build back? Liam, do you want to start, just because we've got into that pattern?
Yep, absolutely, happy to.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we've built our business for years. It's been focused around our narrative of being an organisation which is built around this concept we call Indigenous digital economy, and the idea of the Indigenous digital economy is around what are we doing to be able to utilise technology within our community to be an enabler. I also actually run a charity as well called Indigitech too, which is an organisation which provides learning and career pathways for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who want to move into STEM. The reason why I mention that is because a lot of what we do is built around what are we doing to actually make a change and impact for our community as individuals, but also the collective community as well. So the organisations that work within that, so how are they using technology to better connect and serve their constituents within their community. So we work with a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander based organisations to help them understand how to utilise their technology to connect with their communities more, but also how do we actually tie technology into community protocols and governance strategies so that we're not kind of saying, oh, technology is going to resolve or solve all of your problems. Technology is there to enable you to enhance some of the things that you already have there, but to work complementary with those. So we've built our business particularly around having that strength around our narrative of what our purpose is, and everyone who's been engaged with our businesses and all the team members absolutely love what we stand for. And because of that North Star, we tend to find that people within our team and all the clients that we work with as well see what it is that we're trying to achieve and how we're going about achieving it. And they have the same level of drive and passion that both myself and my business partner as owners do of the business. So yeah, so having I guess that North Star is really been a key point to, I guess, helping us maintain that productivity, especially from that remote working perspective. And I also do want to raise as well that we've actually been doing mental health days too, where we actually, and this actually happened before COVID too, we were actually giving staff, multiple staff members Fridays off. They pick a Friday off each week, so that every month a staff member has that long weekend to choose from as well. And so we tend to find that this whole ecosystem of the North Star plus having flexibility, it provides an ecosystem where your team trusts you and trusts that you're supporting them, so they reciprocate in the same way by working and engaging with us, but also supporting our clients and their purpose as well.
Liam, you've just done me a huge favour. So I was going to ask everyone about mental health and their staff and their team, and I didn't. So actually, that's a nice segue that your purpose and your sort of mental health of the team have been so important together. So that will bring us on to our second poll, which I forgot about, if I'm honest. And so if you haven't already gone on to Slido to do it, and we can see it live change, we'd love to understand for the room and the people online, how has the COVID crisis and changing work practices affected the health and well-being of your team and your response to that? It sounds like it has already been part of what Liam's team has been doing. Oh, and no one's already done it. Oh, look how fast that was. Then, it's like, what, everything, I'm like, what is happening? That's amazing. It's all right. You get to use a microphone, Kevin. You're allowed to tell us directly. Love it. I'm gonna hold on while people still look like that. Please look up when you're done, even if you look straight back down again to look at your phone, just so that I know that you're actually gone. I see 2 people still on phones, so I'm waiting. 3. Like, test whether people are listening or not. So positive feedback from team to new work practices is sort of really up there, and changing work hours and times flexibility to assist employees. Given that we are a little bit close to time, I want to wrap up the sort of conversation about purpose with the conversation about building back better, because the 2 things are quite similar. We were planning to talk about both, but I think actually putting the 2 together makes a lot of sense. So purpose through the last few months, but also how it will help you, and the building back better conversation, touching on everything from kind of flexibility to diversity and all of those kind of areas. What are your thoughts?
I guess firstly, a few people are probably wondering why Beyond Bank is a B Corp. And if we go back, we've been in the mutual space for 60 odd years. Our purpose is to create and return value, and then through doing that, changing lives. So being a mutual, we aren't conflicted with having to provide dividends to our customers. Our customers are our shareholders, and every shareholder is equal. So this crisis has actually been perfect for our staff, because our staff are engaged with our purpose. So every phone call, every interaction that we have is about how can we change your life through this crisis. So we're actually going through the recertification process at the moment. So all of those pillars of being a B Corp have helped us through there as well, in terms of how are we governing ourselves, how are we treating our customers, how are we treating our staff, and what's our impact on the environment. So we're going through that process at the moment. We're in 2014 we became a B Corp. So we're seeing it every day, and we hear the stories every day of how our staff on the front line are changing lives. So we're using those stories. Obviously the first question will be, how are we going to redefine banking? Because the clear message is we're not going back. Things will be very different. We're not going back, but our purpose hasn't changed. And through this crisis, it actually drives our purpose and gives us clearer purpose, and we can see the output of that. So, or the impact, the impact more clearly. So that's how we're building back better.
Cool. So purpose, like all B Corps, it was critical in the way that we responded, and the way we sort of looked at it is, how do we respond as an employer, how do we respond as a super fund, as an investor, and then as a member of the broader business community. I think I've spoken a little bit to how we responded as an employer. As a super fund, we reallocated or gave back our 100K stimulus from the government to the members most impacted by the early withdrawal scheme. So we actually redistributed that money to help them kickstart their super fund or their super balance again, which was great to see. As an investor, we appealed to the companies that we're invested in to put people ahead of profits, and we've been very vocal in our views around the government's early access scheme and the fact that people shouldn't be put in the position where they have to choose between putting food on the table now and having sort of a livable and enjoyable retirement. So that's, I guess, how we approached the problem, I guess the questions in front of us, and that's going to be how we're going to do it as we go forward as well. What can we do as an employer? What can we do as a fund, as an investor, and then as a member of the broader business community, and just go forward like that. It's a really helpful framework that we found to be really productive, and as I said earlier, make sure that we're doing the things that we are best placed to do, and that we're not sort of overstepping the mark or going out of our lane and trying to meddle in good work, but good work that someone else should be doing.
So for us, we validated that our mission and our values don't change, but our strategy and our operations may need tweaking. And it was really a confluence of 3 things that really happened. The pandemic meant that everyone was putting health front of mind. And so there was just easy access, if you like, to tapping into people's health concerns, their questions, concerns across the family. And we also recognised that the emerging research and observations that were coming out where anyone with chronic health conditions fared the worst in this pandemic, so obesity, heart disease, and so forth. And then we at the same time were extracting a lot of our data after 2 years plugging away, and we found that we found ways to help those with chronic health conditions. So it was really an opportune time to really invest more in prevention, preventative care. We're also talking to groups about investing in IT, making our service more virtual and extend beyond our geographic boundaries as well. And also to invest in mental health. So we hired more psychologists and more health coaches as a result. But it's been an opportune time to really focus on the health and well-being of our communities.
Yeah, and I think similar to what everyone said, this was a time to really double down on what we stand for and working for a purpose-driven organization. I think what we saw was a trend, and it was either one of two options during COVID, was if there was one side which was, spending that time to innovate and actually commit to doing good and creating good, and then there was another side that operated out of fear and very short-term thinking. My partner was in a company that was part of the latter, unfortunately, and so they made business decisions based off of the short term. I'm lucky to work for an organization that, like many people here, who work for a purpose-driven company, and I think that's when you really see the value is in time of crisis, during time of uncertainty, how purpose can drive you forward. And I think that for us, what we saw is a lot of the projects we got was essential service related, and everything we did had a well-being outcome that actually served people in this time, and there was a sense of immediacy, but also in terms of that long-term value. So I think what it did for us was just confirm the value of being purpose-driven, because sometimes you can get caught up in the branding of it and what is it doing and how do you communicate it, but it becomes really clear in the time of crisis. So I think that's really how I felt on a personal level, the appreciation and value for that.
Totally, and I think in terms of keeping people connected, certainly for The Guardian, it's been something that's been so important that, at times when people are not in the same way connected. We do need to move on to the Q&A just to make sure that you get your chance to be heard. But one thing that we did want to touch on, so we'll cover off now, is just the question about diversity and inclusion. So essentially, I think what we've all realised in this time is that we are not all equal, and that becomes ever more clear when people are working from different scenarios, which are, difficult and for some people and very, very different for others. So what we'll do first is we've got a poll on that, so it'd be great to get a sense from the audience on that side of things. So as we rebuild business and workforces following this crisis, how will your approach to diversity, equity and inclusion change? I mean, some people may not have found that things are that wildly different for people in different circumstances, but I think a lot of people will have experienced that understanding that things are different for different people depending on where they are. Oh, love it.
So
Great.
We tried a whole bunch of things like staff exercise and tips on sleeping, and we do that as part of our service. But the most popular was dark chocolate. So my kids made these little care packages for all our staff, and they went to these weird and wonderful shops to get dark chocolate, and that created a lot of debate on what chocolate was better. So yeah, that was good.
So get your children working for you is the tip. Love it. That is a good tip. And it was like that we've got.
And it's healthy. It helps you sleep, and it's good for stress.
Amazing tips. Who thought they were going to come out of here with a tip about dark chocolate? I didn't. So people in the room are talking about reviewing and strengthening diversity and inclusion, diversity, equity and inclusion practices, which is B Corps is super important. Liam, I might just throw to you to just add anything you'd like to about that, just with an awareness that we are a little tight. We'll need to move to a question and answer time shortly.
Yep. Yes, I guess from a diversity and inclusion perspective, I mean, I guess being an Indigenous owned and run business, we've typically aimed to hire Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, not exclusively, but certainly, you know, we do focus on being able to achieve that. And so in some instances, we've actually connected with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might have an interest in moving into tech, and then we then support them through a learning pathway, which also includes and them become part of the Indigitech framework as well. But what we've tended to find as well is, as a result of being able to do that, that we've organically then attracted other people, non-Indigenous people, into our organisation as well, because of that that desire for them to then want to connect with our narrative and our purpose as a business, but also to be able to connect with Aboriginal people working in this space, and also working also with Aboriginal clients. One of the things that I would say is that that we, being in the tech space, that we typically do have majority males, and we're constantly looking to grow our female presence, especially across the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community, to move into this space. So from a design perspective, absolutely, we have quite a few females in our business, but we really looking to have more software engineers and developers who are female, because we think that, and we do have a couple, but we do think that the idea is that with that diversity, it creates a diversity of ideas and ways of engaging. So we tend to find that our male developers will look at a challenge in a certain way, and our females will look at it, developers will look at it in another way. And then being able to bring those elements together has worked quite well. But the challenge has been obviously being able to find Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander females in this space. So we're definitely looking at making an impact and growing on that. And it's basically for us now, what are we doing to double down on engaging with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in this space, especially from regional and remote communities. We're huge on the fact that, and you know, I don't want to say that COVID has been you know, a good thing, but it's certainly the positive that's come from it is that because we're now working remotely, there is now opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to work and learn from community, so they can live you know, and work in urban, regional and remote locations, and have participation in the economy, and have that opportunity for self-determination as well. And we're really looking at how we leverage this opportunity for all the infrastructure that's being used now more effectively to have to connect with people who are living on country and in community, and being able to work from those locations, as I'm demonstrating now myself. I'm on the country where my dad's people and that line of my family come from, and my family are watching me work and asking me all these questions about what I do and how I do it. Even family members who are connected to local community organisations here are saying, "Oh, how can we engage and connect with you more with what you do?" I mean, last night my family approached me to talk about developing a language app. So there's huge opportunities for that, and these are the types of things that we see with diversity, especially diversity in where you work from as well, can actually have that flow through effect for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in their communities.
Absolutely, and people will watch this back online, so that's already quite a useful way of being able to sort of reach out. This B Corp month is all about the community being able to sort of spread the love and experience the benefits of all being part of this amazing community. So Liam's looking for tech developers, for female tech developers in the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. So if anyone has the chance to pass that on, to get anyone to watch this video back and to get in touch with Liam, then please do, and we will have helped really live the purpose of this B Corp month. Did anyone want to jump in on that, or shall we go to questions from the audience? Okay, we'll go to questions from the audience. I'm not sure what the microphone plan is, but somebody will make that clear, I hope. But yeah. And we can always go back to this if we need to.
Hi there, this is to everybody. You've talked about how purpose has been your North Star in helping guide you during this crisis. When I talk to clients who aren't purpose-led, one of the biggest barriers I find is they don't see how purpose is going to drive success for them and drive growth for them. So one of the big challenges we have, I believe, is for those who do have purpose and are purposeful to show how it's driving success. So I wonder, are any of you measuring the impact of purpose on how it's actually driving success for your companies?
Do you know what? I haven't jumped in thus far, but I think this is a point where it's worth saying something about The Guardian. COVID has meant that newsrooms around the country have closed down. The impact on civic journalism from a financial point of view is enormous at a time when more people are reading the news than ever before. Who hasn't repeatedly refreshed and refreshed and refreshed the news? I'm always emotional talking about it because it's such an important time. The Guardian Australia launched 7 years ago, and we were around 2.5 million readers a month when I started. March, we reached 11.6 million Australians. That's almost half of Australians, at a time at which financially we were really in a very, very difficult situation, and we continue to be. The difference between us and every other publication in the country is that we are purpose-driven, and our commercial success or commercial structure was pivoted 3 years ago to match our purpose and not be something that was separate. So we said to our readers, it's free, but please can you help support us despite the fact that it's free. So this is a product you can get for free and please pay. And they do. And we have seen more support during this time than ever before, at the time at which advertising revenues have just dropped entirely. And that is why all these newsrooms are closing, because the advertising revenue has disappeared. And our purpose and that commercial impact has been the absolute saving grace for The Guardian, and it's why we're still here. It's why I'm still here. So it makes a big difference.
That's brilliant, and I'd love to hear that shouted from the rooftop so more people can get that message and more leaders can get that message.
You know that.
Case study coming up.
I might jump in as well. As a super fund, I mean, we have returns. We have we can point to it. So as an investor, obviously our purpose guides who we do and don't invest in and informs our screening. So we don't invest in fossil fuel companies who desecrate ancient Aboriginal sites. We don't invest in private prisons. We don't invest in alcohol, tobacco, gaming. I'm going to toot our own horn here. So on a rolling 12-month average, we just had the ratings released, and our 3 products came 1, 2, 3 in the tables, largely insulated from a lot of the sort of losses that people have seen across the board because of our investment philosophy. So the proof is literally in the pudding, and we're starting to see that come through across the board with ethical and sustainable investing. So you're going to see more of it coming, which is really great to see.
In a similar position in terms of our customer numbers. We can see that increasing. We actually have a community development division, so they don't do banking, they just do community. So we're able to measure their impact in terms of their customer numbers, their portfolio growth, and through the stories as well, through the sharing, and then same with B Corp, and we can see our impact. And then with our recertification at the moment as well, we can see how our score has improved. So our previous certification, we're at 98. We're looking at the moment to be around the 140 mark. So I think that's a good measurement of the impact of purpose as well.
Got some pretty good stories from that. Your next book. Love it. Any other questions? We've got a few more minutes of questions. From online.
Yes.
Great.
Tom online asks, how have panellists managed to upkeep morale and culture with staff working remotely?
I think we have 4 main tips. Dark chocolate from kids. I'll butter.
No, it's a really good question. I think for the first few weeks that we went remote, we actually ran a retro. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. It's basically every 2 weeks we'll do kind of a share out of what worked, what didn't work, and how can we improve for next time. So it's something you usually do on a project team. We did it at a studio level, so about 38 of us, to actually share out what wasn't working and how can we improve. And the number one thing for the few rounds that we did it was emotional connection, morale, just team bonding, because I think that was a really hard hurdle for us to cross. And I think the biggest difference, now that things have eased a little bit, is we're starting to adopt kind of a hybrid model of working from home, but also from our studio, because there's just sometimes when nothing beats that face-to-face collaboration. So once every fortnight, I would say people are actually wanting to go into the office to see each other and create that. There's also ways that we do it remotely. You schedule like that water cooler 20-minute catch-up. But again, I think there's just ways where we've just recognized that you have to find a way to come together when you can, and when you can't, we really do make an intention of creating those rituals remotely. So whether that's, we get together on a Thursday, everyone shares out what they're doing, creating something, I think is really, really important. So I think it's the hardest thing about going remote.
Yeah, I'd definitely say rituals have been something for us that have been major.
We created the option to work in our clinics or to work at home for some of our staff, and a majority of them stayed at the clinic. So that was interesting, where there was a sense of seeing each other face to face and just having that connection, which was good to see, actually.
Great. And Liam, did you want to add anything to this? I'm just aware you're not in the room, we can't see you, so we should.
That's okay. Yeah, no, so we have obviously our ritual of our daily stand-ups, but then I also do the random call around as well to members of the team, to generally just say to them, I'm just calling up to have a yarn, see how you're doing, because I think sometimes they kind of like think I'm calling up to do a check-in more so from a work perspective, but then like, oh no, I'm here just have a chat, want to hear about your day, how's your family doing, so I think some simple things like that actually have worked quite well, and it's actually enabled us to maintain the relationships with each of our staff members as well, to really drive that, because I know that we can get obviously bogged down in our work quite regularly. The other thing that we do as well is when we do our stand-ups too, we normally say to everyone in the team if they can put their camera on if they're comfortable to, just so that we can actually see each other as well. Because, again, normally we're just either typing messages to each other or voices on the other end of a line. So being able to actually see each other has been super important for us to actually connect through that virtual manner.
It's brilliant.
I was just one other thing that we learned was actually going to each other's houses. So instead of the studio environment, we've actually started to go to each other's homes if there's just 2 or 3 of us. And that's actually been a really interesting experiment, because seeing someone in their home environment, you actually create a completely different relationship with your colleagues. So I've actually enjoyed that a lot, is instead of the suit, why do we have to go to an office? If it's face-to-face, why can't we go to each other's homes? And you actually see them in their environment, see them with their kids, with their pets, and I think that's been the best part.
Yeah, and who hasn't loved that online part as well, like the cat climbing on the computer and the kids rolling in the door, and yeah, it definitely has helped. Well, this is the first time I've ever done a half online, half real event, and it has been amazing how seamless actually the technology. Well done, guys, because I don't think I've had one meeting during the whole of COVID that's been this smooth. Yeah, it's fantastic to be back in the room with the B Corp community. It has been a really lovely evening. I'd like to thank all of you so much for your insights, and hopefully people do feel that they're walking away with a bit of a sense on how to build back better after a crisis like this. Max, tell us more.
Thank you very much, Susie. Thank you, Gavin, Sakshi, Kevin, Lee, Liam. Thank you very much for joining us. Man, thank you. Cheers. we realise, I also want to give a big shout out to Karen, our events chair, who did a lot of work to get this event together. It is hard to pull together an event in the current circumstances, so big round of applause given what's happening. And the team. Just a reminder, please, in times like these, community is so important. I mean, we can't be together in person, and who knows what's going to happen in 2 days or a week. Or bcorpcommunity.com is really important for us to stay together virtually. It allows us to have boards so we can ask each other questions, connect in a way that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. So please, let's try and get a community going. If we can't be here together in person, or at least we can continue to stay as a community online. So I'd just encourage everyone to jump on there. There will be more events from us, either virtually or in person, hopefully. But thanks again, everyone, for coming along. For those who are here in person, let's enjoy a real-life drink and a bit more real-life mingling outside, if that's possible. But thanks again, everyone. Cheers. Thank you, Matt.